Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you being here for Beyond Video Reviews, how one distance vet tech program built an apprenticeship model and passed AVMA accreditation. Many distance veterinary tech programs face the same challenges verifying clinical skills while maintaining quality, consistency, and accreditation readiness. For many schools, that means students are recording skills on video, faculty reviewing each submission, and staff managing countless files and links, a process that can be consuming and difficult to scale. Today, we're exploring a different approach. Joining us is Jennifer Guenther from Community College of Denver. Jennifer developed an apprenticeship-based clinical model that replaces routine video review with direct skill verification by qualified site supervisors. Using Trajecsys to track competencies, evaluations, and clinical experiences, her program successfully navigated the AVMA CVTEA accreditation process. Today, Jennifer will share how the model works, lessons learned during implementation, and common pitfalls to avoid. Before we get started, though, just a quick note, we encourage questions throughout the chat, but we're going to wait to answer those questions at the end. So go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will discuss those at the end. We'll have a Q&A session. Also, this is being recorded, so we can send this to you afterwards so that you will have it available to send to anyone you would like. All right, now let's get started. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so we're just going to kind of dive in, Jennifer, but before we get really too deep, just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your program and how long you've been using this new apprenticeship model.
My name is Jennifer Guenther, and as Shauna said, I'm with the Veterinary Technology Program at the Community College of Denver. I've been in education for over 24 years now. So we've approached several different methods of keeping track of essential skills, which I always know is a battle. We used to do the paper version, then we went to an online version. And then I honestly don't remember how long ago we went to Trajecsys, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It's been a while. And then during that time frame coming out of COVID, I think it was fall of 2020, is when we launched our first cohort of apprentices. So we did establish the first vet tech apprenticeship program in the country. It's an official registered apprenticeship. We were under the U.S. Department of Labor and now under Apprenticeship Colorado. And really the model of an apprenticeship is the ability for students to earn while they learn. So the point is that they're employed for pretty close to full time, a little over 30 hours a week while they're going through the program. So most of their coursework is done remotely, and then their hands-on skills are done during their working hours, because again, we want them working, on the job training, all of those different things. So with that model, then of course we came up to how are we going to handle these essential skills. So I did a lot of research in the language of, through the CVTEA, and really decided that we are going to empower our places of employment to be those eyes and ears for our students and supporting them in completing those essential skills. Shauna, do you want me to keep going, or do you? Because I could talk about this for hours.
I love how passionate you are about it, and your knowledge is gonna, help so many people in this space. But if you could just pause right here for just a second and tell us a little bit, more directly of the apprenticeship model versus a traditional distance education clinical experience that most programs use.
So first up, taking out the distance or apprenticeship model, I think we all know what traditional education looks like. Students come to campus, sitting in lecture, doing labs. I think as educators deal with that pretty easily. We're with them, they're doing their labs, completing the skills. Traditional distance education, my understanding, because we have not had a traditional distance education program, is it's an online program where students, they complete their skills remotely. Those skills have to be viewed by college faculty, and then they do their online learning. In traditional distance learning, they may or may not be employed. Where with an apprenticeship, a big part of that is they do have to be employed at least 30 hours a week in the field in a vet clinic with the goal that they're going to become a credentialed veterinary technician. Where I know in distance education, I think a lot of them are probably working, but maybe that's not a requirement. We also do, as an apprenticeship, meet with our students occasionally, which also is beneficial. Usually about 5 to 8 times a semester, we do meet with our students in person.
Thank you so much for explaining that difference for us. That just helps those that might be questioning it. And I am always dumbfounded when I hear that staff is reviewing hundreds of videos. Imagine what that must be like. That's a lot. It sounds like you've been able to figure out a way to negate that issue. So you decided to go in this apprenticeship model. Walk us through how you developed it, what you use, not just with Trajecsys, but the more of the nuts and bolts pieces before we head into how Trajecsys supports you.
Okay. So let me just, so as far as developing the apprenticeship, is that
Yes.
okay? And that component of it was really driven by, I would say, our program dean. I might have got into the apprenticeship with a little bit of kicking and screaming because, sometimes none of us like change. We did have an employer that wanted to support one of their current vet assistants in becoming a vet tech, and they wanted to pay for that. And I brought that information to our dean, and who is familiar with apprenticeships in other fields. And she said, this really sounds like an apprenticeship model. And she really started pushing the idea of developing a vet tech apprenticeship. As I said, I went into it kicking and screaming. We started the process pre-COVID and launched our first cohort post-COVID, but it actually worked out really well because, as we know, COVID changed everything and how we learn. But we worked really closely. In Denver, we were lucky that we had some awesome U.S. Department of Labor representatives that worked in the apprenticeship office and really helped us develop our standards. So we come up with our program standards saying this is what it looks like to be a part of it. We call our program, it's competency-based and credit-based. Credit-based because they're earning those credits to get their associate's degree, and then competency-based because they have to complete those essential skills. And those essential skills are completed throughout the 2 years. The coursework is online, and that's how we wanted to do it. So we worked with an instructional designer for a long time, turning all of our current curriculum into online engaging work, recording lecture videos, assignments, we use something called Soft Chalk that's really interactive. Using our same curriculum allowed us not to create another program. If we said we were going to create an online program, then you have to create a new program with the AVMA. But we were really using our same curriculum, same courses, covers the same material. It's just a different way of learning. So our students can choose traditional or they can choose apprenticeship. By just changing that, we did not have to create a new program. We just had to fill out a substantive change form with the AVMA saying we're going to have a new option for learning. So that piece, and then that's where, okay, we can do all the lecture material, make that online interactive. Now we're back to those essential skills. And what do we do with those? So that's where we knew we didn't want to require that they come to campus a bunch because they are working. So we started looking at really bringing our employers on board to support us. They want vet techs. So how can we show them what we do, and then they can be perfectly capable of signing off on those essential skills. So we did bring into the loop our registered vet tech in Colorado and our veterinarians and really show them the skills we use, how we have them in Trajecsys, and how they can teach the students the same way that we teach them and support them in obtaining those essential skills.
So when it comes to those folks teaching your students those essential skills, what sort of paper trail did you have to have so that we're ready for that accreditation site visit and to make sure that everything was above board for the AVMA and that process? What did that look like?
Yeah. So first I'll say before I jump into that, we had our AVMA site visit last October. So really for the past several years as we launched our apprenticeship, I wasn't sure how it was going to go, how the AVMA was going to receive this information, but it went really well. And that's why I'm here today. If it didn't go well, I probably wouldn't be giving you advice, but
Of
it did
course.
go really well. So we decided, there's multiple components of being able to sign off on essential skills. In addition, as an apprenticeship, there's other paperwork that our employers have to sign off on. But in the role of mentor, or what we call journey worker in the apprenticeship world, being able to sign off on essential skills, I ask each employer to assign a mentor. It has to be a credentialed vet tech or a veterinarian, and I need that person's name. And we need evidence that they meet those criteria, but that's easy to look up. I can look up everyone's state licenses, so that's not a big deal. I do keep a record of the clinics, the mentors at that clinic, and their licensing date and expiration. So I make sure that they fulfill those requirements. And then once we have those new mentors sign on and say, I'm going to be Bob's mentor, I schedule a meeting with them, usually anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, and walk them through that process. I do a screen share. This is our Trajecsys database. And I show them what that looks like. I show them all our skills, the individual exam items associated with each skill, how they can view those and see what our requirements are, right? So if we're placing an IV catheter, we require that our students have all their supplies set up. They shave, they scrub, they wear gloves, all those exam items associated with the IV catheter. So I show our mentors how to access that. I have them, after we go through those steps, sign an attestation or an affidavit saying that they have been shown or trained on our skills in Trajecsys. And it also says in that affidavit that they agreed to fulfill that role as if they were an employee of the Community College of Denver. So it says they've been through the Trajecsys training and the skills training. They agree to fulfill that role. We put a lot on our students trying to minimize the load of our employers. So we actually have our students, when they complete skills, we have them enter them themselves into Trajecsys. And then our employers have to do what we call accept the skill. So the student may say, hey, I completed 5 skills today. I entered them. Can you go in and accept them? And then their mentor will accept the skill, being like, yes, I saw them complete these successfully. Or, they can change the grade on that skill, or they can leave comments. And then I actually go in a few times a semester and validate that all that has been done. So I oversee it all, but the student enters it, their mentor accepts it, and then I validate it. But really, I think making sure that they're credentialed and that they're trained in our skills and those tasks as they're listed in Trajecsys is a huge piece of meeting all of those accreditation requirements.
Awesome. So those students, let's talk about those sites and them being employed. They
Yes.
go and get that employment, I'm assuming, or do you do any pairing for those students?
A little bit of both. We do have approved employers
Okay.
because they have to sign on with Apprenticeship Colorado in the Community College of Denver, agreeing to employ apprentices. Sometimes students will go, they may find new clinics, and then we have to onboard them, or I'll give them recommendations of our partners that I know that are hiring. So a little mix of both.
Okay. And anything else that those supervisors or those licensed vet techs, anything else that they need outside of just being licensed that they, need or want? Or do you ever have them coming to you asking, can we have some apprentices?
We definitely have outsiders coming, or probably the more common scenario we get are these employers saying, we have vet assistants that want to become vet techs, but they need to keep working. They can't afford not to work, but they want to go to school. So can we partner in your apprenticeship? And that actually works out really nice because they're already employed. So we can easily get them signed on.
Okay. Now, what about in Trajecsys? I know that you have documents available, and we're going to share those there at the end to everyone that's here.
Mhm.
But when it comes to their access to any documents, do they have access to review your orientation or skills requirements, that initial training that you did? Do you have something like that already there so they can just refer back to that?
Yes, so I do like to meet with them initially just to go through that training. I didn't mention kind of step one is I send them the link to every mentor has to register with Trajecsys. But then after we get them all onboarded and set up, I do send our employers regular emails and I say, hey, if it's time to accept those skills or maybe to complete an evaluation. If you forget how to do that, here's where you can access those videos and forms in Trajecsys. So we kind of have a bank in there. I think it's under documents that they have access to where they can look back at. Again, I've recorded a few videos and I have some kind of step-by-step with pictures of how to do that.
Having as many resources available is very key for everyone to feel comfortable, and that way they're not having to reach out to you all the time with those questions. Now, Jennifer, would you mind reminding me how many students do you have in your apprenticeship program currently?
In the apprenticeship, we just graduated a cohort, so I currently have 12 students.
Mhm.
I have 16 so far. We're still taking applications, but 16 starting in August.
All right. And what was the largest class that you've had?
The largest class we've had graduate has been about 12. So we start
Okay.
a new class every August.
All right.
So
Awesome.
we could have between the first and second year, usually about 24, 25 at a time.
Now, let's talk about feedback on those essential skills when it comes to your students learning them hands-on there at the sites and how they're getting that feedback in real time versus delayed and maybe the video component models that are out there. How has this impacted your student experience and success rate of those students when it comes to them being able to get their license and be successful vet techs?
Overall, still being newer, we're still working on gathering data. So we've had 5 cohorts of apprentices graduate so far. Our pass rate on the VTNE is very promising. It's 92% for our apprentices, which is well above the national average. We were nervous in the beginning. It's new. We didn't know how well this is going to work, but we've had, I think, alumni take the VTNE so far. So it does show that this learning model works. We do see when our students get to their anesthesia course, which is kind of right in the middle, starting their second year in the program, we have seen our apprentices are definitely way more advanced than our in-person students. In the end, we hope everyone evens out, but because our apprentices, they are working just about full time the day they start the program, we really see kind of a rapid growth in their skills. And then taking that book knowledge and being able to apply it every day at their place of employment, we've seen some really great things happening with our apprenticeship model. Just great demonstrations that it works.
Yeah, I think real-time feedback is really key when you're learning those skills and creating habits and how to do them correctly. Them, getting that real-time feedback is really paramount.
Yes.
So now we're going to move on from your apprenticeship model that you've created, and let's talk a little bit about Trajecsys and how Trajecsys supports you. So in your model, you needed a system that's going to document your competencies or rubrics, evaluations, attendance, and that clinical progress. Now, Trajecsys has come in. That's where you're housing all of that information. So how does that look for you? Are you able to easily pull reports, kind of get an idea of where your students stand regarding those competencies and things of that nature?
Yes, easy to pull reports, and more so for, for our traditional students, I would say I don't pull reports that often when they get close to graduation, when we have an accreditation site visit. But for our apprenticeship I pull reports more regularly because that's required of Apprenticeship Colorado. So I'm doing it at least a couple of times a semester, and it's really easy for me to pull those reports and say, hey, I'd like to make sure that they're working on their skills. And then I will, give them some feedback. Either I see you haven't entered any skills in a while. I'm sure you're doing something. Let's make sure we enter those. Or, I might say, great job, you've done everything correctly. Or I'll email the student and their mentor and say, hey, it looks like you've completed quite a few skills, but they haven't been accepted by your employer yet. So if we can get those accepted, that's great. So I do keep track of those at least a few times a semester. And then I do pull those reports and I have to update or add them to the apprenticeship website or database. So, but they're really easy to report or to pull. I can get a quick visual of by each apprentice, what's been entered, what's been accepted, and if we need to nudge anybody.
Hmm. Sometimes gentle nudges are definitely needed.
Yes.
But you're also
Reminders. Yes.
you're right, exactly. You're creating professionals and they need to be able to go and talk to those people that they work with if they need sign-offs or anything, be able to approach somebody. So you're really creating a really well-rounded professional in the workplace. So anything outside or including Trajecsys that you want to just hit on before we move on to your accreditation journey?
I'm trying to look through my notes. I wrote a few things down. We had a couple of things that were trial and error. One of them, initially, when we were onboarding our mentors, we were making them faculty in Trajecsys, and we decided to change that, and we give them the role of supervisor in Trajecsys, which allows them to have access to only their apprentice and allows them to accept those skills. That has worked really well. That was the only thing I would say where making them faculty was a little bit odd because it gave them access to all of our students, which I think probably violated some policies. So we were able to correct that. It's nice to have the option to make them just supervisors.
I'm assuming you do have them separated by cohort, so you have maybe your traditional versus your apprenticeship students in different.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk about a little bit more about that accreditation journey. So I
Yes.
know that that was something that came up in October. You were able to
Correct.
pass your accreditation. And one of the biggest concerns for most programs is considering the changes is that accreditation piece. So
Mhm.
share your experience when it comes to speaking with the AVMA CVTEA regarding that accreditation process. Was there anything that they mentioned that needed to be changed? Or what were their thoughts regarding your new apprenticeship program model?
If you've been through a site visit before, we all know that they can be nerve-wracking. We had a really great site team. They were wonderful. I was mildly panicked. I was way more panicked about the apprenticeship and not knowing how that's going to be received. And they were really wonderful and really open to it. Their big things were, okay, how do they even know how to validate or accept your essential skills? So I told them my process, how I have them sign an affidavit, how we do training with them. And those are really the key components that they were looking for. They thought that that method worked very well. Again, as long as there was some sort of training involved with these are the skills and these are those exam item or tasks we associate with each skill. The only recommendation, and it was just a recommendation, but I did it, was with the affidavit that I had the mentors sign, that I add an exit clause to that. So
Hmm.
if for whatever reason our partnership dissolves, that there's an exit clause involved in that. That was really something easy to add to our documentation. And then that piece again was received really well, relatively easy. They're trained, they sign an affidavit, they're a credentialed vet tech or a veterinarian, we're good to go. The other piece, a big lesson learned here, was because they are signing off on essential skills, each hospital is considered an extension of us. So they need to meet all the same criteria that we do. So they did ask for video evidence that those hospitals are meeting that criteria. So the hospitals had to take videos of all the areas where the student's primary learning occurs. So maybe the exam room, maybe the treatment area, the surgery, their diagnostic lab, the imaging lab, any area that these students are learning, they needed to submit videos of those, which can be a little time consuming, but we're only asking our employers to do this, every 5 or 6 years, so not a big deal. One of the things that I had a lapse on, again, lesson learned, is that they do have to meet those same criteria as us. So if that employer did a quick video and there was drinks in the lab, that was a ding. Or, if too much storage in their surgery room, things like that. So we actually had a lot of those because I just didn't recognize that, which it really ended up, again, not being a big deal. The AVMA was very kind about it. And then I had an item, on our deficiency list that we had to redo those videos. So I reached back out to our employers, gave them all the criteria that needed to be corrected, and we redid the videos. So keeping that in mind, that they just have to meet all those same regulations as far as assignments, safety, storage, their lab area, PPE in the x-ray lab, all of those things. Once I corrected that, then it was fine. We received full accreditation. But that was the piece that I was like, oh, didn't even think about that one, but has been corrected. Any employer partners that are signing off on skills have to make sure that you're meeting all the same criteria.
Okay. It sounds like it might be a daunting task, but you figured out how to really work with those employers and sites. Have you had any pushback from any of those employers or LVTs at the sites regarding any of this process?
I wouldn't say pushback. Sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve. Again,
Of course.
in
Yeah.
veterinary medicine, everyone's busy. And they're like, oh, what do I have to do? Just that kind of gentle coaching and training. We have had some of our employer partners that have had apprentices every year. They've taken on new apprentices. And for them, it's just part of their day to day. Those new employers, again, it takes a little bit of gentle coaching on the processes and how to do it. But I do find once they get over that initial learning curve, that it's pretty easy, that they're like, okay, this isn't that big of a deal anymore. I also do, as I mentioned, try to put a lot on the student. So they have to enter their skills, remind their mentor. I also, when we had to get those videos,
Hmm.
because again, that can be time consuming, I included the students on those emails and really asked them, with permission of their employer, to take those videos. I wanted to make sure that their employer knew why the student was doing a recording, but I really asked the student to obtain those for us. Again, trying to minimize the workload because they're all busy.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you've really figured it out and have it all laid out really nicely. We're going to be able to share a lot of Jennifer's information that she has gathered together and has in Trajecsys, those documents that she's used and those learning videos for you guys to see as an example. So let's just talk about overall in general. What would you want anyone here on the call today or moving forward, someone that we meet maybe at AVTE, what would you want them to remember from this conversation?
I think probably the biggest thing, well, a few things. Do I have to pick one?
No, not just one. You can pick as many as you like.
I would say the first one is that our employers are partners. We know there's a shortage of vet techs. They want vet techs. They want to elevate current employees, be able to hire and train and bring those vet techs into their business. So they really are willing to do these things. So definitely partner with them because they want to partner with your school. So I think that is a big one. And then the second one I would say is the video component. We haven't done the videos with her. We never did them and we didn't want to. And that's where we were like, I kept reading through that CVTEA language and being trying to figure out, do we have to do these videos? For one, not only is it time consuming of faculty to have to watch all those videos and then the storage of them. So there is other ways for your distance learning, or if you're looking at an apprenticeship, there's other ways to do it. So I think partnering with your area employers and then looking at other ways outside of those videos. Both of those are big takeaways, that there's options.
That's great. Yeah. I think finding those options and getting more into the real world and getting those texts out there is really important for just the health and well-being of everyone, animals and humans alike.
Mhm.
All right, so we're going to share all the information that Jennifer has given us today. I'll send the recording link. So thank you so much for sharing that information with us and your experience. We received some excellent questions from our attendees, so let's spend the remainder of our time going through these questions that they have in our chat. All right, so our first question is coming from Tanya Niles, and she says, how do you handle apprentice students that may want to change employment mid-program?
It doesn't happen often, but it has happened, and we handle each circumstance on an individual basis, kind of looking at like, okay, what is causing this? The employers gave a student that opportunity, and took a spot that potentially another student could have had. So we do want to try and like work it out. So we always look at troubleshooting first. Is there an issue that we can work through? Because they're an employee, we have them work with the employer first, but I'm always happy to mediate. What is it? Is it just a personality conflict? Is the student not progressing? Kind of what is the issue and can we work through it? I've had students where they moved and it's a driving issue. So we'll work through that. They do know that they have to be employed to stay in the program. So if they cannot find a new employer, then we will automatically take them into our traditional program if they're able to come to campus and do things like that. So they always have that as a backup. But if they do want to change mid-program, then I'll work with them on trying to secure new employment if that's possible. And I'll try and work with the employer as well as the student, trying to address any issues, but working on securing new employment if possible.
Thank you so much for asking that question, Tanya. That's really helpful. Another question that came in, going back to those employer partners, that came from Lisa. How many employer partners do you currently have?
I don't have a straight answer for you.
Of
I would
course.
say there's well over 20. However, as you know, in today's day and age, a lot of our veterinary clinics are corporate. So we have some of those employers. I know one of them has 12 locations, another one has 30 locations. We have a couple that have 2 or 3 locations. So I would say we have over 20 partners, but we probably have well over 50 locations at least.
All right, another question from Tanya is, did you initially seek students for the first cohort or seek clinics wanting to be in an apprenticeship site?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Both. So that first cohort was a little bit tricky. Started up with a corporate employer and then a private employer, and they both had internal assistants that wanted to be elevated and applied. And then I had some new applicants, and we were doing at the time a lot of information sessions. So really letting them decide, do you want to do the apprenticeship or do you want to do the traditional learning? So it was both. There was a lot of moving parts with that first, trying to launch that first cohort.
All right, well, thank you for that. All right, another question from Dana. It might have been answered, but correct me if I'm wrong. She's asking, how long is your apprenticeship program? I think you said 2 years. Is that right?
It's a
Okay.
traditional 2-year associate's degree. They start in August and then graduate in May, almost 2 years later.
And another question from Tanya. Are there any specific skills you require them to complete on campus? Is there anything that they have to do on campus?
Yes, so we do have required on-campus labs. They are Fridays only. Knowing that our apprentices are working, most of them full-time, we always say Fridays you have to leave open for labs. So Fridays are the one day that you can't work, and our employers know that as well. And we give them that schedule at the beginning of the semester. Again, it's about 5 to 8 Fridays a semester. For our new apprentices, we will work on some of those basic things like restraint, animal care, and handling, just to really get them those skills that employers want. We do a lot of diagnostic lab, like fecals and heartworm tests on campus, because A lot of clinics don't do in-house lab work anymore. So those Friday labs, even if they can do those skills at work, they are required because we like to get to know them and they get to know the other apprentices. And then currently, we do not have any employers that see large animals. So we will do our equine and our cattle labs on
Okay.
Fridays as well. We don't actually have those on campus, but we take them off-site during those Fridays.
Okay. Sounds like you've really figured out a way that works best for your program there. And if they're able to do some of those required skills that, the AVMA CVTEA requires the students to perform at the sites, are they able to do those at the sites as well?
They can. We really want them to attend these labs because we have gotten a lot of value in it with having those occasional face-to-face meetings. But they're like, I'm going to be out of town. I have one student that unfortunately has a funeral coming up, and we have an anesthesia lab this Friday working on the anesthesia machines. And she's like, I've hit those skills at my place of employment. Is that okay? And we'll say, yes, that's okay. Or if students like, hey, I have horses and I'm meeting with the vet this Friday. Can I complete my equine skills then? So we will work with them if necessary, but we really encourage those Friday labs.
Okay, so it's kind of a case by case basis when it comes to those required skills.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Excuse me if I pronounce your name wrong. Fami, you were asking, is your program semester based or trimester based?
We are semester based with a summer term as well. So spring and fall and then one summer.
And then last but not least, we have our last question here. Dana asks, do you require the clinics to hold any specific certifications like American Animal Hospital Associations or any other certifications?
We have some great shelters in Colorado. We have a lot of specialty clinics, and then we have smaller rural clinics. I don't want to eliminate anybody. So as long as they are able to provide that mentor through the AVMA, they have for your school, they have the skills list and the equipment list. And we share that with all of our clinics and ask them to fill it out. If there's things on there they can't provide or equipment that they don't have, that's totally fine because we can pick up those pieces. But as long as they're willing to mentor, they're able to provide a majority of the skills. We don't have anybody that can provide them all. And really be a partner in this experience. We don't require any specific certifications.
Thank you. And then last but not least, we have Tanya here stating that she received her LVT through a similar program back in 2001. She's wanting to start this type of program very soon. She's wondering if you'd be willing for me to share your contact information or you could schedule a time for her to talk with you.
Shauna, you can definitely, you can share my contact information and I'm always happy to kind of talk through this process with anyone. We're proud of our program. I love it. It's gone very well. I think it's, it fits. We need vet techs, and traditional vet tech education doesn't work for everyone. So I think it's a great learning model. And we're seeing those results where the graduates are doing really well. They're passing the boards. About 85% of them, I think, stay with their employer after graduation.
Oh, that's
So
great.
yeah, so that's a nice plug for employers as well.
All right, well, we've come down to our time here in our webinar. If any more questions are placed in the chat, I'll be happy to answer those in an email afterwards. Jennifer, thank you again so much for being so open about your journey and sharing with everyone your successes and your lessons learned along the way. I mean, we often take more from those lessons learned than the successes, so it's really great to get that feedback. For anyone attending today, we'll be providing access to Jennifer's orientation materials and supporting documents following the webinar like we discussed earlier. We hope that today's discussion has been really useful, giving you practical ideas for reducing that administration burden, improving your clinical education experiences, and strengthening accreditation readiness within your own programs. Now, I just also want to mention that Jennifer and I will be at AVTE. It is in Portland, Oregon, July 29th through the 1st. If anyone is interested in meeting with me there, I'll have a booth. We can also schedule a time to talk while I'm there, or Jennifer, we can get together and have a meeting if you'd like. So just let me know if that is something that you're interested in. And I really do appreciate everyone joining us today. It really helps get the word out about this new model, and I'm really excited to see where this helps other programs. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate your participation and your thoughtfulness. I hope that I meet some of you guys at AVTE, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Shauna.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.